All right, artists, we are starting our final drawing for Unit 2. So now we get to take everything we've been learning so far and finally get to apply it to our final drawing paper. So in this video, we're going to start with our sketch on paper. That's our first step when starting on our final drawing paper. Step 1, pencil drawing on final paper. That's what you'll see in BB9. So what we're gonna do is get to this point. I have mine done here where we have our object drawn multiple times on paper. So what we need to do is work through a few slower steps to get set up. We'll go over requirement reminders, the things that you need to include, and then the options that you have to get more creative. And then we'll get started on your drawing. So I'll have you get set up with me. And if you're working as I go through this video, that's okay. However, there are going to be some steps that you want to make sure that you listen to fully first before you're working on your own paper. So what I'm going to have here in front of me for supplies is my final drawing paper. And this paper is 12 inches by 18 inches. It was handed out in class. So some of you might need to be working on different paper depending on if you got yours from me or not. So please reach out to me if you have questions about that. I also have my Unit 2 packet. This is in your binder, and I'm gonna flip this open to the last page. And I'm going to be looking at this step 5 requirements a lot today as we go over setting up the object around your paper. So it's really important that we remember what these requirements are. And I have my final sketch of my object. If you have more than one object, you'll have more than one final sketch. I only have one object, so this is my one final sketch. So what we're gonna remember for our final sketch is that we have a drawing of our finalized contour of our object. So again, our goal with this drawing is to have just an outline and some details added, and you got to choose which details, all with line. So while I'm drawing this today, my goal is to focus on the contour line and any details drawn with line. I'm not shading today, I'm not filling spaces in, I'm not shading it to look realistic. It's going to stay a line drawing until I'm done with this step. My sketch should also be 7 inches or longer in one direction. Add any details of the object that you want to include with lines only. And we can add some measurements to help. So I'm going to be measuring my drawing a little bit today. So it'll be helpful if you have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can wait to do certain steps until you're in class and I will check one out to you. So at any time while you're working on this project, if you need a tracer or a ruler, you want to try and use things that you have at home or around you, a straight edge, or maybe something that is a shape that you can trace to help you with your craftsmanship and help you make things look the best that you're able to. So sometimes that takes a little bit of effort and creativity to make sure that you're using things around you that you're able to. So to get started on my final paper, I need to do a few things first. One is to make sure that I get my name on the back. So you should have your first and last name and your hour, so hour 5A or hour 6B, whatever class you're in, first and last, and the hour that you're in, so that if you lose your paper, we can get that back to you. We make sure that it's yours that you're working on, and then I'm gonna flip my paper over so I can work on the other side. The next decision you need to make is your drawing going to go horizontal or is your drawing going to go vertical? For some of you, you might draw with your paper going a direction, and when you're done, it might actually be able to be hung up either direction. But if you're not sure, you want to start to just make some decisions today. Go with your gut, right? We haven't done this drawing before. We don't know what it's gonna look like in the end. So sometimes we need to just say, do I want it to go this way or this way? So we're gonna just make a decision today. Last class, we looked over student examples with a lot of different directions and examples of how students have set this up in the past. So if you're looking to find our project page again, in BB9, right above this step, there's a step called Unit 2 project page. There's a link that you can click to open up our project page and scroll through to see everything that we went over at the beginning of this unit. Please go back and use that resource whenever you'd like. Once I'm ready to get started, because I have my supplies ready to go, I have a regular drawing pencil, I have a ruler handy, I have my sketch, my paper, and my packet. I want to make sure that I know what my requirements are before I start drawing, and you'll need to start making some decisions here. So what I'm going to do today is just draw with a regular pencil. If you don't have a regular pencil to draw with, you can use your ebony pencil, but that pencil might smear as you draw over and your hand runs along your paper. That's why I use a regular pencil for this step. But again, if all you have is your ebony pencil, you can use that, but you'll also need an eraser, or even a larger eraser here. All right, so my requirements for my drawing says, number 1, the object you draw should be a minimum of 7 inches in one direction. So I'm going to measure my drawing here, my sketch, and it is 10 inches going the long way, so I'm good. It only needs to be in one direction, and it only needs to be drawn 7 inches or bigger one time on my paper. So as I start to consider my composition is where I'm placing things on the paper. I want to decide, am I drawing my object 7 inches or larger just once, or am I going to do it large every single time? We talked about that with a lot of student examples. Some of them draw it the same way every single time on this paper. Some students will draw it large once, and then the sizes change from there. So you're going to have a lot of decisions to make when it comes to the size of your drawing. Number 2 says the contour line of your object will be drawn 6 to 10 times, and they must overlap a few times. So 6 to 10 is a range. You need at least 6. If you have more than 10, awesome. It really depends on how your drawing starts to come together. So you need to draw your object at least 6 times, and 6 to 10 is a good range, I find, when we're working with such a large sketch. Number 3 says all pencil lines will be gone over with Sharpie and pencil lines erased. That's why we're not shading right now. So we're not going to take time to fill in our object and shade it. We should just be focusing on simple pencil lines for right now. We'll go over those pencil lines with Sharpie. Then we'll add our 3 materials, which is our ebony pencils, color pencils, and oil pastels. But we need to get through numbers 1 through 3 first. So those are my requirements. I know that those are goals that I have to meet throughout this drawing. So I'm going to set this to the side so that I'm always reflecting back on that as I work. Now I want to show you a few other examples that I had done in the past, because we've seen some student examples on our project page. But here are a few other examples that I've done. Here's my sketch for my fan. So I had 2 objects for this drawing, a postcard from Spain and a fan from Spain when I studied abroad there. So these 2 objects are very meaningful to me. And this is an example where I did 2 objects instead of 1, right? You're only required to have 1 object, but some of you might have multiple. So I did a sketch of this object with just the contour line, right? There's not shading or a whole lot of detail added. And then for my postcard, I just did a rectangle. I didn't do any of the information on the inside because I really wanted to simplify this. This is a very detailed image. So I wanted to represent the postcard with a rectangle and not worry about all of the detail, because I will explain the meaning behind my postcard in my artist statement at the end of the unit. So this object is 11.5, almost 12 inches going one direction. So it's pretty large. And this is one way that I decided to fill my paper. So I have the fans going in one direction this way. So they're kind of simplified in this drawing. So they're going this direction. And then at the top of the paper, they're going outwards. And the postcards are kind of in the center. So this is what that looks like gone over with Sharpie. So I'm thinking about drawing these objects 6 to 10 times. I have 4 fans and 3 postcards. So I'm meeting that requirement all together. I do not need to do 6 or more fans and 6 or more postcards. Since I'm doing 2 objects, I can kind of combine those numbers together. I'm not finished with this example yet, but after I did Sharpie, I started to add my colored pencils, my oil pastels, and my Prismacolor pencils. So I used warm and cool colors. I also have the white of the paper showing in some places. Where my sketch doesn't fill the whole paper, there are blank areas that'll eventually be filled in. So these are the steps that we're working towards. We need to understand that our sketch will eventually become an outline in Sharpie, and that outline is what we'll fill with our materials. I have another example where I did the same objects, but I set up my paper in a little bit different way. So in this example I just showed, this drawing could go vertical or horizontal. This example is intended to be vertical, up and down. So what I did is I have 2 fans that are drawn with extreme detail, right? Just a line drawing the same way I did in my sketch. I repeated it the same way here twice. Then what I did is, since this has so much detail on it, I drew the outline of the fan once here and the outline of the fan a second time down here, but without all of the detail. So I know that I have to draw the contour of my object 6 to 10 times, but you do not have to draw all of its detail every time. Now this is where, like, there's so many options as an artist. Sometimes you just have to go with your gut. I knew this was really detailed and there's a lot of lines going on. So I was like, okay, I'll try to make ones that are simplified. I could always add the lines back in later. But some of you have very detailed objects, so you might want to draw them at times with just the contour line. Then the rectangles go up and down. Some of them go off the page. The fans go off the page on the side. The postcards go off the page vertically. So I really thought a lot and made a lot of changes to this composition as I drew. And this is what that looks like when I went over it with Sharpie and when I started to add the colored materials in the ebony pencils. So I have some areas where I'm still working, and this is how it's starting to get filled in, and this is the top here. So again, I'm drawing my objects multiple times. I'm overlapping them in some spaces, but not all the time. And I chose which objects will be detailed and which will be simplified. All right, so let's get started with my example for this year. And I've decided that my paper is going to go vertically. So I want you to get your paper set up, have your sketch and your packet handy. What I'm going to start to do is think about my composition. Do I want my animal skull to be drawn over and over again, all the same direction? Do I want it to twist and turn? Do I want it to go off the page, or do I want everything to stay on the page? We looked at student examples and discussed this in class so that we could think about all of our options. And now we, again, just kind of have to try something. Decide what you're going to do and just get started. And over time, as you add, you're going to be able to start to make more and more decisions based off of what you have already. So my goal is to draw this on my paper, and some of you might get frustrated with how much you are redrawing something over and over again. The purpose for this part of the assignment, where it says you're going to draw your object 6 to 10 times, is to practice drawing. We do not get better at drawing until we practice, practice, practice. So we are not tracing our sketch. I'm going to look at the sketch and redraw the skull on here 6 to 10 times or more if I need more than 10. So for the first one, I know that I'm going to keep it the same length because I need to meet my size requirement. And then after that, I could start to change the size if I want. So to help me redraw this, I can use a ruler to help me measure and redraw things a little bit easier. So for example, the length is 10 inches. So if I decide the first time I draw the skull, I want it to be like this. Okay, I'm just going to start to overlap, twist and turn, go off the page. I want my drawing to feel a little bit more abstract, a little bit more to get the viewer to think about what my drawing is instead of it being too straightforward. That's my goal. Some of you might want to kind of keep things nice and organized and repeat it in a little bit different way. So if I know, okay, my skull's going to go about here, I'm going to draw a line to help myself right here. It's going to be 10 inches long. From this line, now I can start to build off more helpful things here. Okay, this is 4 1/4. Let me see here, somewhere around like here. So it's not going to be exact, but this is kind of the general area where the eyes are. So I kind of know how wide it can get, how long it can get. Then I can start to look at my sketch, and you can look at your object. Right, if you still have your object out in front of you, that might be helpful. And I'm going to be drawing my skull the same way every single time. Some of you might want to draw your object from different viewpoints as you go, and that's okay too. So if you have photos of your object like from the side, you could do one from the front, a drawing from the side, a drawing from the top down. You can change that look each time, but my goal is to simplify this project. I want to draw this skull. My decision that I made was to draw it the same every single time. So I would suggest doing that as well if you're not sure about changing it as we go. So I have my general shape here. So now what I want to do is start to draw things a little bit more accurate. So my line is just changing a little bit as I go around. It's in, out. So giving myself this general shape first allows me to make sure, okay, everything's going to be in the right spot. And I'm going to be repeating this at least 6 times, but every single time it might not look the same, right? I'm trying to redraw this the best that I can, but I understand that I'm not a robot. I might not be able to draw this the same every single time, and that's okay. Actually, it might look more natural if things aren't this exact same every single time. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm drawing lightly with my pencil, trying to draw in these details. And my lines are starting kind of sketchy right now. In the end, if I need to, I'll lightly erase and kind of finalize that line. We know that we're going to be going over these lines with a Sharpie and then erase these pencil lines. So eventually I'm going to erase what I don't need so that when I go over things with Sharpie, I'm not confused like, oh, is this a line I need to draw or is this one? But I need to get to that point first. All right, as I'm sketching, I'm noticing I have 2 different eye sockets here. So what I'm going to do is look back here. Okay, say how is 1 too big or too small? I'm going to make this one bigger. So this is going to take a lot of time and patience, but this is how we get better as an artist. And if we want to get better at our drawing skills, we got to practice drawing over and over and over again and try our best. So it's going to take a lot of time to draw in all of the details. If you have a very detailed object, what you might want to do, since we're drawing this multiple times on your paper, you might just want to draw the very, very outer edge all over your paper and then go into details. So you need to think about what's going to work best for me, my object and my drawing. Do I need to draw a very detailed version first and then repeat it and draw it detailed and then repeat it and draw it detailed? Or do I want to draw a very simple shape, make sure everything's in the spot that I want it to be, and then go in and start to add more details? We're going to have multiple work days on this step. So we want to take your time, think about where things are placed, make sure we're meeting our requirements, and using tools as we can. Use a ruler, use a shape if you need to like get an outer edge or to get like a curved line. Look for things around to help you with that. And the biggest thing here is to make sure not only we're meeting our requirements, but you're happy with how things are filling the page. So I'm going to show you my finished example, which is here. And I'm going to slide this up so we can look from the bottom of the paper, kind of scroll through to the top. And I have my object drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And I landed on the number 7 just as I was drawing. So what I was doing, I started with this one here, and then I did another one overlapping. And I'm okay with my objects overlapping quite a bit. Like this is looking pretty chaotic. And I'm okay with that. Looking at some student examples, I decided that I'm okay with things really overlapping. And I think what I'll do is when I add color, it'll only be to the spaces and overlapping areas. I'm gonna leave black and white. So I'm actually gonna use the way that they're overlapped to pick my materials and color choices. But what I had to do is I had to think about, okay, how is my paper starting to fill in? Where am I leaving white space? Does that white space in the background feel balanced, or does it feel empty, like something needs to go there? So I did these 3 first. They twisted it and they turned. This one kind of goes off the page here. then I knew, okay, if I have something that goes off the page on the left, I want something that goes off the page on the right-hand side. So I did a skull that goes off the page here. I have a skull that goes off the page on the bottom. So I wanted at least one, there's two of them, but at least one to go off the page at the top. All of the corners are empty, some more than others. But that's something that I was considering too as I was filling the space, and you might need to erase something and add it again. So this is where it might be helpful for you to just draw the very simple outer shape first, make sure they're all in a good spot, and then add more details. So it's gonna take time, erasing, practice. I did mine exactly the same every single time. This is where it gets kind of busy. So if you wanted to just do the outline of your shape and not add the details to some of yours, that could help with that. So we have a lot of different options, but I want you to use those options to make artwork that you enjoy. Think about what visually you like and don't like, and let that allow you to make those changes. So this is gonna take a lot of time and patience, but I want you to try and draw light with your pencil, because then we'll be going over these lines with a Sharpie next. So get creative, have some fun with it, and remember, you are designing your composition. So you are creating the kind of map of your drawing. Where are things going? Remember to use your resources. Have fun and good luck.